There was loads of drama for Sergio Perez in the Grand Prix, and we're going to pick this one up with the second start fight then. On the way down to turn one, and we've already seen the battle at the front, but now we're going to focus on this battle behind, and it's 4 cars all running for the same half of the track here, coming down towards the first corner. Leclerc's got a bad start from 4th, Perez has had an average start from 5th, Sainz had a great start from 6th, and so has Hamilton from 7th. It means they all start arriving together down to the first corner. And as we play it through, the space is at the moment okay between them, but you've got Leclerc starting to move towards this side, which shuffles the whole pack to the outside of the road. At the moment it's okay. Now you see Leclerc just a tiny squeeze, and Hamilton now is running out of space on the outside of the track. So somewhere in here you've got an incident waiting to happen. All 4 of them side by side, and it's Leclerc. If Leclerc moved more to the inside, then they could have all got through, but he has kind of no need to do that because he's on the right line, so he's got a car slightly ahead of the others. He will probably have absolutely no idea because his mirrors only will look that way. He'll see Sainz, but he'll have no idea that Perez and Hamilton are on his outside, so he doesn't really realise at this point that they're 4 wide, and it's just a very tricky racing situation here. So in the end, we play it through. Hamilton's on the grass. Sainz then is the one moving across on Perez a little bit more to try and open up the corner. Again, he won't have a clue that Hamilton's there right on the outside. Perez has the better idea, but it's too late for him to back out. He has a little bit of contact with Sainz, more contact with Hamilton, who's well off onto the grass and does very well to hold this one as well. And in the end, it's only really Checo that loses out from this one with some front wing damage that he'll need to pit to replace. If we see it on board with him, you can see average start from him, not a great start from Leclerc. There goes Sainz in the middle, but now we've got Hamilton coming up on the outside as well. There's Lewis, so we're 4 wide, and at this point, this is an accident waiting to happen. Can Checo back out of it? Yes, but it's not in your racing instincts to do so when you've got a car on your outside trying to come through as well. Can Hamilton back out of it? Yes, and it's probably more on him at this point because he's squeezing into a gap that's not really there, and he's the car that's slightly further back. And for Perez here, we have just I mean, at this point, he must know that he's about to have some contact. There's no more space. Hamilton's still there on the outside, and we have just a little bit of front wing there flicking off from Perez, and a little touch on the front left as well, and that is Checo then into trouble in the race. It's a tight one. It's marginal, and he's unlucky to have that damage when Sainz was able to carry on unscathed, and Hamilton just a tiny bit of damage for Lewis as well. They didn't really cost him his race. You can see the understeer straight away as Fernando Alonso comes through. Here we go on board with Lewis, and you see again much better start from him, and at this point there's loads of space on the outside. He's got Perez there, and he's still got this bit of space that he can go to if he needs. So the move at this point is on. So you can see the cars queuing up on the inside. First of all, you've got Leclerc, then you've got Sainz, then you've got Perez, and we're on board with Hamilton. But for Lewis, you're sitting lower in the car than this onboard camera view. So again, probably certainly doesn't know that Leclerc's there, probably doesn't know that Sainz is there either. So he thinks he's going to be afforded this space. And as we play it through, now Checo's coming across, but that's because the Ferraris are moving across. Now it starts to get a little bit tight. Still there's a bit of space, uses everything, and then when there's still the Ferraris moving over, now we're running out of space, and it probably is a little bit too late for Lewis to back out or do anything else from this point. There's the contact well onto the grass, and it's actually very calmly done from Hamilton to just keep it pointing in the straight. No serious inputs, otherwise he'd probably be heading for an early retirement in that one. But for Perez, it was a bad bit of news, and it forced him to take a pit stop. And in doing the pit stop, he incurred a penalty. And this is why. We've got Fernando Alonso just ahead of us, and Checo under the safety car comes through. There's the safety car line here. Now you're not allowed to overtake a car before that line. Afterwards you can do what you like because you're technically in the pits, but clearly makes the pass on Fernando, coming through, passes him, and takes a bit of an advantage there because you're saving time coming into the pits. It's a slight gain, and therefore it's a penalty for Perez, and really one that he probably should have known a little bit better on. There was another moment for Checo coming out of the pits as he accelerated up, and again we've got the safety car line here, and now you're not allowed to overtake a car after you pass this line because you're back onto the racetrack, but you are allowed to fight all the way up to the line. So Checo does the sensible thing here, and the natural racers thing of keeping it pinned all the way to the line and making sure that there's not more cars coming on the main straight that he would lose positions to if he was just cruising out of the pit lane. So he does the right thing, but then he's carrying so much momentum. He goes past Albon, goes past Zhou, watches out for a bit of debris, but he does technically overtake the 2 cars. But this one I think was okay, because straight away he knows that, he recognises it, and back through goes Zhou. And as we play it fast forward, back through too goes Alex Albon. We have a little gesticulation of something from Checo at the wheel, but I think at this point, this exit was okay. Even if technically he gained position, he gave it straight back and took no advantage at all. It was a sensible bit of racing through the debris at a very slow crocodile of cars behind the safety car, but the pit in wasn't, and he got a 5-second penalty for that. He got another 5-second penalty for a move a couple of laps later, and this one was a pretty poor move from Checo. And it reminded me a lot of the racing that he was putting on in Singapore as well. And I just don't think he's in the right headspace when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing at the moment, because he's a driver that I think has the capability of being brilliant in wheel-to-wheel racing. We've seen that in his time at Red Bull for the last couple of years. We've seen it in his whole career. He can be instinctive in wheel-to-wheel. He can be strong on the brakes. But this is a nothing move, and it's exactly the same as the ones he put on in Singapore. Comes in, and this is from a full car behind Magnussen, just tipping the Haas. Obviously, K-Mag's going to be turning in towards an apex there. And now Checo, I don't know what he's expecting to happen. He's locked up. He realises now that there's about to be a collision. And he's really just absolutely non-committal, but just throwing a nose down. And that is how to cause a crash, really. And there's not really much that Magnussen would be doing. He wouldn't be expecting the Red Bull just to throw a nose in there. And for Checo, another incident, Haas taken out. And it's a 5-second penalty, and we'll get onto that a little bit later. But again, here's the move. We saw it the lap before. He had a little look at this and then thought otherwise. Now he's been following Magnussen for a lap. Magnussen's in this train as well, behind the Alpine ahead, and so he maybe is a little bit frustrated. But this is never an acceptable move to be going for this from fully back. You can expect the car ahead here to be turning in, and just a little lock up at the last minute as he realises there's a crash, and another back marker taken out for Perez. And this comes after this one in Singapore with Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. And again, just dangles the front wheel in. This was on the first lap. He got away with that, no penalty. And that one's less ridiculous as a move than this one on Albon. Just bundles his way into the side, crashes Albon out the way. Now you've got the one on Magnussen, which was more akin to the Albon one. It's really poor racecraft from Checo. And the world champion team has just taken out 3 backmarking cars in the last 2 races, which is a pretty odd state of affairs as well, whilst Verstappen's out the front winning the race comfortably. And I know that Checo can do it, because this was an outstanding move that he put on Lewis Hamilton, same corner back in 2012, and this is how a move should be done. Very different era of Formula 1, but sends it in, same corner, but he's so committed that he makes the move through and really gives Hamilton no choice. As we play it through here, at this point, he's right alongside Hamilton already. He's fully committed at the apex. He's already slightly ahead. There's nothing that Hamilton can do. There's no collision that can happen, really. The only thing that can happen is Checo doesn't stop the car and goes straight on and into the gravel. But at least you take the choice out of the other car. You own the moment. And at the moment, Checo's just dangling his front wings in, and he's causing too many collisions.
No, the car doesn't feel right.
And Sergio Perez has been told to retire the car before he gets that 5-second penalty.
Now, the penalty was served in the end, and this is another rule that I think the FIA got to clamp down on. I don't blame Red Bull for doing what they did. They had to get Perez back in the car, even if he'd been in the garage for 40 minutes and was already retired from the race technically. They struck him back in, sent him out, served the penalty, and negated it from the next one. So actually, for these 3 incidents, taking out an AlphaTauri, a Williams, and a Haas, Checo's had no meaningful penalty. 2 5-second penalties that were absolutely redundant and didn't affect his result at all. And this is something that I think probably needs to be looked at, particularly if you're jumping back in to a car when it's retired to serve a penalty to negate having a grid penalty for Qatar. Again, for Red Bull, it makes sense. It's their best thing they can do in a pretty disastrous situation. And I think moving forward, it's obviously not a great way to do it, because it's just making that penalty system completely flawed. And I think moving forward, maybe for next year, the FIA need to look at having more meaningful penalties for collisions that are not 50-50. They're not even 70-30. This one for me, a bit like the one on Albon, it's 100% on Perez. It's a pretty hopeless manoeuvre that just simply sends the guy into the spin from either crashing into the side or tipping him on the rear end. There's never an element of a racing move in it. And hey, he got away with it, and we'll carry on. But I just think Checo needs to reset, because he can race so well, but at the moment, in these wheel-to-wheel battles, I think there's frustration creeping in. He's fighting with cars further down, he's impatient, and I want to see Checo go back to his racing best, not only in terms of pace, but in terms of actually making clinical moves, having a bit more patience maybe at some times, because we know he can do it. We've seen it before.
It was just a disastrous weekend. It all started into turn one with a really bad start, and I was squeezed down, and I was just a passenger there and a sandwich. I think we carried a lot of damage in the car as well, and yeah, that just made it a lot harder for us.